From UFOs to psychic powers and government conspiracies, history is riddled with unexplained events. You can turn back now or learn the stuff they don't want you to know.
This is possibly the most metal story of the year, and I'm doing metal horn fingers as I say this. If maybe, who knows, maybe this gets picked for the YouTube clip, maybe not, but I was doing it aggressively, and it's because this is the story about a man, a Florida man, no less, purportedly with the very metal name. He has two very metal names, Yago Anax, aka Prince Midnight, who has allegedly taken the bones, the upper body torso bones, minus the arms, minus the skull, of his deceased Uncle Philip, spelled F-I-L-I-P, it's also kind of metal, and converted it into a guitar. Because supposedly Uncle Philip, at least this is what Prince Midnight told metalsucks.com, which is actually counter to the name, a site about for people who like metal. It's ironic, I guess. He told them that Uncle Philip was the biggest metalhead in the world, and he wanted to honor his, remains and his legacy by converting it into a functional guitar, because he wanted to be able to shred into eternity, or be shredded upon, I suppose, right? And this story, understandably, got picked up all over the place. I saw one in an Indian newspaper of note, the Tampa Bay Times, obviously, the original reporting, but places like Guitar World magazine, obviously, CBC Radio 1, Complex, Huffington Post, the AV Club, and many more have picked this story up. Prince Midnight did several posts on Instagram where he talked about how he was planning on doing this, or actually it started off, where he was like, I am going to get my uncle's remains from this medical lab that they were donated to. Apparently he donated his remains to science, but the story goes that they no longer were able to use actual skeletons to make skeletal demo kind of situations like our Agent Scully. I don't think that's a real skeleton, right, guys?
No comment.
Oh,
comment.
Okay.
No comment.
No comment. Got it. In any case, apparently it used to be that medical remains of this kind could be used in that fashion, and this is apparently not the case anymore. So he was somehow able to get it back, which I think is a little fishy. How do you go about that? It's not like he was digging it up from a grave, which would obviously be hyper illegal. But he claims that he was able to get it back from this lab, the school rather, because they didn't need it anymore, and so he was able to get it back. I guess maybe because he showed some identification, showed he was next of kin, what have you. It came in a giant wooden box, and this is a Greek Orthodox family, again according to reports, and then he shows the process of making the guitar. He literally installs pickups by drilling into the bones, and then a bridge, and he has to install like a steel rod to reinforce it, because sure, a spine is strong, but a spine also bends. That's not something you want your guitar neck to do. So he had to run a steel rod up through the center of the spine and then put a neck on it. And it's kind of fun to see him play it. You can see this online, actually, in several places.
I saw it on Reddit.
It's pretty cool, but it's also kind of limiting. If you're truly a shredder, your movements are a little limited because the actual part where you strum is inside the rib cage.
Yeah, I saw that too. It feels like it would be a little tough to reach, doesn't it? Now, I do want to say, just because I never get the opportunity to work this into conversation naturally, Philip, spelled with two L's, is an archaic word for the following. That little putting your finger against your thumb and then flicking it at someone.
A Philip.
Any finger. Yeah, that's a Philip.
Oh, that's fascinating. See, there's quite a few details in the story that make me think, there's more. We're going to get there. That maybe this isn't the whole story. First of all, the name Yago Annex, it's almost like a nod and a wink to the famous metal guitarist Yngwie Malmsteen. In that, at least, it's just a very Nordic sounding name. It's a very metal sounding name. Obviously, not Nordic, but like a Greek kind of. It has that vibe with two A's. It makes me think of Vigo the Carpathian from like Ghostbusters 2.
Scourge of Moldavia.
The Scourge of Moldavia. And also, now that you mention that, Philip, what is that? What would you do if you were going to do that? You would be bonking someone on the nose, almost as a little aha, gotcha kind of, thing, right?
Mm-hmm.
So the story goes on. The publication of origin here, which would be the Tampa Bay Times. And if you guys don't know this, many of you probably do. Tampa Bay and Florida in general, but Tampa Bay in particular, has always been known for having a bit of a theatrical kind of metal scene. Like, apparently there was a band called like Hell on Earth back in the day that had some kind of scheme to have the first like on-stage suicide. And it was somebody who was terminally ill, and they were going to allow this person to off themselves in full view of the public. Apparently that didn't go over well in terms of PR, so they abandoned this idea. Well, that's the kind of stuff the metal scene in Tampa Bay is known for. Very goth, very theatrical, very black metal. It's almost like Norway or something, but like in Florida. And obviously the Florida man trope, which we've been through a million times on this show. But Tampa Bay Times is raising some doubts about the veracity of this story, because they believe that Prince Midnight, aka Iago Annex, looks a whole heck of a lot like this other gentleman who made some news in past years, a guy with also very interesting name by the name of Odilon Ozer.
Who has an Instagram, by the way.
Who has an Instagram.
I've been reading it.
Yeah. And Ozer made the news in 2018 for getting the Guinness record for like having the world's tallest hat. And
Tallest
also
tiny hat or skinny hat?
Yeah, it looks like a stovepipe hat, like an Abe Lincoln type situation, but it goes up like to tree heights. Like, I mean, it's massive. There's pictures of him wearing a really cute outfit. It's a gray suit, jacket, and pants that match the color of the fabric of the hat. And the hat is extending up into the heavens. And then he's wearing this kind of baby blue vest. And he's got a very, very coiffed mustache and long kind of mane-like hair. He really looks like the kind of guy you'd see maybe tending bar at some kind of hipster speakeasy type joint, only with a really, really tall hat. So that's one thing he did. He also did another bit where he got another world record for having the longest acrylic fingernails. And so there's images of him with these crazy long acrylic fingernails that are extending, like he's kind of posing with them, and they're again match his outfit. He also had another moment of fame, relatively speaking, where he submitted a taxidermied crocodile that has two heads, that's now on display at a coffee shop in Seminole Heights, in the neighborhood Seminole Heights in Tampa. So the Tampa Bay Times felt like Prince Midnight had a very striking resemblance to Ozer. And Prince Midnight is admittedly wearing a wig, and you don't really see his face super well. So the jury's still out on this one. It hasn't been quote unquote solved yet. I think it's a fun story. There are things to be said though about the level of kind of laying the groundwork for a hoax like this that our guy Prince Midnight made, because he definitely has a band. He definitely has a record. Prince Midnight is an institution. This guy is very much leaning into this persona. He, had to figure out how to make a guitar out of a skeleton. Whether it's real or not, I don't know. I mean, he definitely put in the effort.
One other thing, and I'm going back to, I think, I don't know if you could call it a hoax. You can definitely call it a performance, but I don't think a performance is automatically a hoax.
Well, it's only a hoax if the skeleton's not real, right?
Well, yeah, it depends. People have sliding definitions of hoax, but I wanted to point out clever hoaxes, especially if they're meant to be discovered, if they're meant to have a nod and a wink, have little clues in there. So maybe Philip with one L is this guy, the alleged skeleton guitar's name it carried in life. What if it's short for Philipendulous, which is another useless word I know. It means to be suspended by or strung upon a thread, which goes very well with guitars. I'm just saying. Finally, God, I have like a list of words I never get to use. Those are two.
And it also describes all of the reporting and outfits that just kind of ran with this story as a sensational piece of news.
It's interesting too. The Tampa Bay Times, who did really, you're like you said, Matt, they're the only ones that really did any true digging on this at all. Everyone else just reported it sight unseen, like crazy story. Florida man does the most metal thing of the year, makes a guitar out of uncle's remains.
Two lines of text
without
huge
actually
picture.
looking into any confirming anything, which is actually a pretty interesting comment on the state of reporting right now. But the Tampa Bay Times actually contacted the Guinness World Records office, which, admittedly has become a bit of it's not a thing as much as it maybe once was. It used to record important records, things like, the world's fastest man or what have you. But now it's things like longest acrylic nails and tallest stovepipe hat. So it really is more of like a publicity stunt, and it's easy to outdo somebody just so you can make it's a thing anyway. But they reached out. Guinness said they do ask their applicants to provide a full name, but will accept a stage name. And that also points to how this is kind of a bit of a Carney-esque, silly thing these days, Guinness records. Call me out if I'm wrong on that, but that's just how it feels.
Yeah, well, the Guinness Book of World Records was never super credible nor accurate. I mean, it is mainly made to be a conversation starter and to resolve arguments that people had at bars. That's the origin story.
And to sell actual Guinness.
Right. They ran the Scholastic Book Fair. I was always very excited about those books, along with other things we've mentioned in past episodes. I do want to point out, lest I seem too pretentious for knowing so many unnecessary words, for a long time as a kid, I thought stage name was just the name of a local stage. So I thought people's stage names were like the stages they went to do whatever their show was.
It's like, when you go to a festival and they have like the big stage, the main stage, and the two smaller stages, and they all have kind of clever names or names of like the companies that sponsor them. That's funny, Ben.
I got a gig tomorrow on Griff Huxley.
And I thought pen name was what people named their pens. I was not a very well-adjusted person.
You learn something new every day. Last thing, so the two-headed alligator picture I mentioned before, that was actually perpetrated by a guy by the name of Justin Arnold, who the Tampa Bay Times also believes Ozair resembles. Ozair has said he doesn't know anything about this Prince Midnight thing, or at least he, denied any association, said this is not me, and I don't know anything, I have nothing to do with that. I do want to say this other guy, Justin Arnold, who the Tampa Bay Times believed Ozair could also possibly be, he's the one who tricked the paper into publishing this two-headed crocodile picture on its cover. So maybe they're a little peeved about that. This is in 2014. Maybe they're kind of after him a little bit, because it really does seem like they're trying to do almost like some kind of lighthearted character assassination here. But I love this. This guy, Justin Arnold, is currently the front man of a punk band in Tampa Bay called Feral Babies, which I think is a fabulous name for a punk band.
Yep. And did you mention the response when this outfit I think it's from a group called, or it's As It Happens, they reached out to that punk band, and the response was, "Go F yourself."
Oh, okay.
So punk. And
so they're legit.
Totally. And also the Ray Roya, who has been kind of following a lot of this stuff, and he seems to believe that these are all kind of one and the same. He's on the side of whomever this person may be. He's the editor-in-chief of Creative Loafing, which we also have here in Atlanta. I guess that's a Southern thing. I didn't realize that it wasn't just in Atlanta. But he says, quote, "Calling him a prankster seems cheap because he's a performance artist, a genius in a way." So,
a genius in a way.
In a way, yeah.
What a shitty compliment.
Yeah, well, I mean, he did call him a genius, so.
You're good at not wetting the bed, in a way.
Oh, come on, Ben. That's not quite as good.
It's such an
It's a
asterisk.
hedge.
Yeah,
It's a hedge. You're right.
It's
I
a
get
hedge.
it.
No,
I get it.
I get it, and there is something to be said with the idea of the subversion, which I'm quite a fan of. The idea of hoisting someone or pranking them for not doing their due diligence, like the Sun and the Daily Mail. To Matt's earlier point, and Noel's earlier point, they didn't investigate as much as they should. But it also makes me think. So these kind of performance artists, they need an audience, right? So it makes me think there's more in the future to come.
Yeah.
And by the way, the guitar is he has dubbed it the Skelecaster, which is clever.
Nice.
And if in fact it is made of human remains, which he obtained legally, he cannot legally ever sell this because it is illegal to traffic human remains, to sell human remains.
Yeah, to civilians.
Correct.
Like, yeah.
And I don't think any medical labs would be in the market for a Skelecaster.
Maybe a museum.
I was gonna say you could probably donate it. I bet he could get around it
Museum
that
of
way.
Death.
There you go.
That'd be tight. I would. Oh, that makes a lot of sense.